Hello, welcome to the Why Wait podcast. I am Julie,
And I'm Beth.
and today we are talking about conflict. And
Yep.
conflict is inevitable.
And
Contention is a choice.
contention is a choice. I think that a lot of people, why would we use such terms
As
as
far
for weight loss? Yeah.
yeah, I think conflict is inevitable, meaning there's always going to be a birthday party, a vacation, a bump in the road, and we can either go over the bump gracefully and with power, and or we can hit our heads against a wall and make it a lot harder than it has to be.
Yeah. And on our journey of trying to clear our heads and our bodies, if that's the desire we want to change our bodies, there's without doubt going to be opposition, which is the conflict. And so this whole thing came to my attention because I've always thought in my mind, what's the difference between conflict and contention? Because you hear when you read your scriptures, Old Testament, New Testament, Book of Mormon, whatever scriptures you're reading, you hear contention is of the devil. Contention is not of me. The people started turning to contention. Like you constantly hear that. And so then I would hear the word conflict and I'd think, what's the difference? Did you ever wonder about the difference between those two words?
Yes, probably not to that level, but my mom would always say growing up that contention was of Satan, right? But it is a hard thing to understand because contention happens a lot within yourself. You're fighting with a sibling. How do you get past hard things without that contention, right? So there, I think recognizing that they are two different things and there's certain ways to handle it is comes in experience and growth and changing. But yeah.
So what really did a switch for me was several months ago, I was listening to the podcast All In with Morgan Pearson, and she gave a quote from Elder Uchtdorf while she was interviewing a man that literally teaches about conflict, teaches about contention. And his name was David Pulsifer. Anyway, he gave the most incredible from Elder Uchtdorf's talk, Dieter F. Uchtdorf's talk. He he gave the most awesome explanation that totally helped me decipher between the difference of conflict and contention. So,
You get to hear it.
yeah, ready? Okay, so this is what he said. If we think about the creation of the world, we realize that the process of creation is a process of division, dividing the light from the darkness, dividing the water from the land, creating multiple varieties of plants and animals, and male and female. And all of these differences and divisions that are part of the creative process are then put into tension with one another. And it's the tension between them, the tension between day and night, that creates sunsets and sunrises. The tension between water and land creates mountains and canyons and seascapes. Some of the most beautiful parts of our world are created through conflict. If you will, through the conflict between water hitting against the rocks and the seashore, and so conflict creates beauty. Conflict, when we do it the right way, will take us through a process in which we are co creators with God. So we shouldn't be afraid of conflict.
Mm, that's really good.
So, what were you going to say?
There's just so much to think about that like the tension, the pull, the gravity, the just the earth in itself. Yeah, separating the good from the bad. You come into a situation where you have to solve a problem and you kind of have to sort out like, all right, what's good here? What can we do without? What's the solution? And that's conflict.
So, Julie and we wanted to use one of our week's courses of content as conflict is inevitable, but contention is a choice. So, knowing what I just read you from David Pulsifer, in our lives, It's inevitable for us to have conflict because we live in a human body. Our spirits reside in a human body, and the body lives in a fallen world. So there are constant things that are causing conflict. There's food choices and environmental things and hormones and genetics. There's all these things that can cause conflict. But the beautiful thing is there's also the positive side of that tension that we can choose a different path.
Mhm. And you don't have to be a product of your circumstance. You can choose if you're in a conflict or you're in the middle of contention. The best part about our plan or the plan of happiness and that we are spirits within a body is that we are given the agency to choose. All these things can be happening around us, but we don't have to give up that agency to it. And I think that's the best thing is like I like to use the example of Disneyland of one person can think it's the happiest place on earth and the next person thinks it's awful. Or I love Mexican food. My dad won't touch it. It hurts his body, right? And it's my dying wish. Whenever anybody says, "What's your last meal?" I'm like, chips and salsa. That's all I want. Not for him, right? So there you have two separate bodies, lots of the same choices, but the beautiful part is we can choose it. We don't have to eat the Mexican food. We don't have to fight with the person that's fighting with us. We don't have to be mad at a situation that you should, quote, air quote, should be mad at. We can choose all of these things and realizing I loved when I realized that it's okay that you're frustrated. It's okay that you're mad. You're supposed to be. We are here and life is 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, whatever you want to choose. And without the bad, there would be no good. And so me just sitting back and realizing, oh yeah, that's right. It's not always supposed to be easy. Then I can kind of settle into the hard part and kind of, dig my way through it and learn what I need to learn without being contentious. There's still that conflict, but I don't have to be so angry or upset, or I think it just takes longer and it's more painful that way.
And so that leads us to the word contentious. So this is what he said that I loved. He said, contention, on the other hand. So, like Julie just said, we don't have to be contentious about the choices that we are given to choose between. We can decide what we want to do with this body we've been given, and we will pay a price eventually for whatever choices we make, for good or for bad. And he said, David Pulsifer said, contention, on the other hand, is engaging in those differences in a way in which we don't respect or love the other. So I would say where we don't respect and love ourselves.
That's what I thought too, right? When you said that.
So he says, when it comes to human conflict, we can engage in all sorts of disagreements and differences. And out of those disagreements and differences, create beautiful arrangements in our families, in our workplaces, amongst our friends, and in our communities. But when we lose that sense of love and respect for ourselves or for the people who are different than us, whether that's political, cultural, religious, or different personalities, and engage in conflict with anger, with seeing other people as objects and not as people, then very quickly that is what we call contention, and that is not of Christ. So, relating it to us in the process of trying to heal our bodies or take care of this beautiful, beautiful body we've been given, when we begin to see ourselves as an object and not love ourselves and have contention with our own selves about our choices of food, what we do if we don't exercise or do exercise, or whatever is important to us, then we are quickly heading into the realm of contention.
Yeah, against ourselves. And so then you have your spirit and your body fighting each other because I try and teach that your spirit knows best, but your body wants easiest. And so if you allow that natural man and that anger and that contention and those hormones and chemicals to take over, now you're in contention with whoever you're in contention with, and then you're also in contention with yourself, right? And so it's a twofold, and it's really hard to separate the whole situation until you're usually out of it. When we talk about when we talk about this in the aspect of weight loss, some of us have 10 pounds we want to lose, some of us want to gain muscle, some of us want to lose 100 pounds. The road seems long. And when we teach you in life coaching, we teach you how to pick a goal, strategize around it, think about the obstacles you're going to come up against. And those obstacles are going to be contention every day. Every time you have to make the conflict, every time you have to make a meal choice, your body's going to go, I want the bad thing. And you're going to have the conflict of, no, I'm choosing the better thing. And so if you know ahead of time that it's going to be there, when it happens, you're not like, what's going on? You're just like, oh yeah, here it is. I already planned for this, and let's move past it.
And you say to yourself, oh, conflict is inevitable. This is inevitable. It's supposed to happen.
What was your quote last summer? There's no point in struggling, right? From
Struggling is pointless. That's from Tangled.
And then I loved that quote I just heard. The body is an instrument, not an ornament.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we can think of that, like usually we want to lose weight or something for the ornament aspect, but if we can use it for the instrument aspect, it takes a whole new flip on it. And it's just a more deeper, more spiritual, longer progressing goal than just to look a certain way. I think feeling a certain way is very important in being healthy and being able to use your body as that instrument, but just realize all forces of nature are going to work against you and that it's okay. You can do it. You've been given the strength to get past conflict, to organize your thoughts and to plan for that contention and just choose love. Like when you come up against something hard and maybe you didn't make the choice you wanted, you ate the thing or you yelled at the kids or the husband, choose love for yourself and then you will be able to change the situation. But if you just say you shouldn't have, you shame yourself, then you're just going to create more negative conflict.
Absolutely. And contention, which leads to contention. Just it makes me think about a client that I worked with that she lost 50 pounds, but it took us working together for it was about a year. We just really she's in her late 60s. Her husband had died of cancer, and she noticed that her body, her arthritis, her sleeping, just things were not going well. And she said, Beth, I just can't carry this weight. But she was in this conflict because she's a cook and she can create amazing dishes. But the conflict too was at her body. But with everything that happened to her, she wanted to really give herself some love and respect. And so she said, I'm making a very conscious decision that even though this is going to be, there's going to be conflicts going into my life with my children and my grandchildren and my cooking abilities and everything that's around me at my fingertips, I am literally going to choose to move forward and accomplish this. And she's maintained it. And she didn't let herself get angry that she's in this spot, that her husband's gone, that she's now overweight and she can't do anything about it. She literally showed herself deep compassion, love, and she chose to use the conflict, which was the tension that she felt with this choice, but to move forward and love herself and respect herself.
And I think that's the best part about losing weight with coaching is it's not, for me, the results have been lasting. Like for the last, since I started learning about life coaching, I haven't fought my weight. I haven't fought with myself over my weight. My choices are my own. I don't shame myself. I just make my choices and move on. I no longer wake up thinking about the next meal. Like that was the best part of my day was what was for lunch or dinner or breakfast, and everything else seemed hard. Or what wasn't I going to eat that day? That conflict and contention of trying to withhold all of that in shame and punishment for myself. And now it's just this like really light thought, like it'll come up, I'm hungry. What should I eat? And because I practiced over and over what I feel good eating, those are the things that come to my mind. And there's just so much freedom in my brain and emotions for so much else, right?
Mm-hmm. So remember, it says in the scriptures that we taste the bitter that we may know to prize the good. So in your journey to better your life, your health, whatever that is, remember that there's going to be conflict, but it's inevitable. But don't let that turn to contention where you objectify yourself and lose that self love and respect.
Love it. All right. So we will see you next week with more fabulous content, and we appreciate you listening.
Thanks, everybody.